walked into the room and felt it before you saw it. A glance that smiled with its mouth but not its muscles. A question asked just half a second too late. A warmth that smelled like a trap. You didn't know what it was, only that something underneath the surface had already touched you. It wasn't the lie that startled you. It was the way your bones recognized it before your thoughts did. People say they want honesty, but they speak in dreams, wounds, and disguises. The woman with the soft voice carries a knife in her sleeve. The friend who flatters you is quietly measuring your fall. Intentions are not spoken, they leak. In a twitch, in a delay, in a word choice that doesn't match the eyes. To see through someone, you must become still enough to drown in their shadow. You must listen without hearing, look without searching, and know without asking. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the video. Leave your shadow in the comments. Subscribe, and stay near the silence. Intentions reveal themselves not through words, but through the tiny betrayals of the body, the unconscious blinking of a lie, trying to stay alive. You don't watch them, you wait for them to blink. Not with their eyes, but with their mask. A blink is a fracture in the performance, a ripple in the surface of the pond where the truth hides beneath the reflection. They say something meant to reassure you, and for 1/2 second, the muscles near their mouth tighten, then release. The sentence finishes smoothly, but their breath did not match the words. That's where they blinked, and you felt it, not with your logic, with something older. Your skin is wiser than your mind. It twitches before your name is said in vain. It recoils when someone touches you with a voice that smells like sugar and rust. This isn't intuition. It's the primitive self, the inner animal that never stopped watching the pack for betrayal. You don't need to be clever. You need to be quiet, still, as if you were waiting in the forest and your survival depended on hearing the wrong bird call, because it does. Intentions hide behind polished sentences. But the body cannot rehearse its pauses. The hands hesitate when they're about to give you a lie. The tone goes one note too high when someone says they're just trying to help. And no matter how convincing the words are, the corners of the eyes betray the hunger. That's where you catch them. Not in what they say, in what their nervous system forgets to disguise. They think they're hiding. They think their charm is enough. But when you look at them without feeding their mask, something collapses. A subtle panic enters the room. They blink faster. Their fingers twitch. Their throat clears with no sound. You didn't accuse them. You didn't speak. You simply became the mirror they couldn't control, and it made them shiver. You have to stop wanting to believe. That's the first trap. The ones who hurt you wear exactly the face you hope to see. The predator doesn't arrive snarling. It arrives wearing the memory of someone you once trusted. And when you want to believe, you give them the script. You hand them your map and say, "Please don't use this against me." And they smile with just a hint too much kindness. And the lie begins. The blink is not just physical, it's energetic. It's the moment when someone's gaze shifts too fast when you say something vulnerable. It's the fake stillness that's really restraint. It's the way they lean in, not to listen, but to memorize. You said something true, and instead of empathy, you saw calculation. That's the blink. That's where they forget to keep the mask aligned with the mouth. People reveal themselves in the tension between their role and their impulse. Watch the lag. Watch the way someone takes just a beat too long to react with outrage. The genuine are reflexive. The deceitful rehearse their sincerity mid-sentence. The ones who mean you harm do not always hate you. They need you as an audience, as a resource, as a mirror they can control. And when you stop being predictable, they blink. To see someone's intention, you must dissolve your own. You don't approach with suspicion, you don't accuse. You become as still as moonlight and wait for movement. People project onto blankness. They reveal more when they think they're in control of the story. So you listen, not to agree or argue, but to observe where the story leaks. Words are slow, intentions are fast. They leak out before a sentence can catch them. The moment someone says, "I didn't mean it like that," but you already saw how fast their voice went cold, that's the blink. The body said it, the mouth just tried to repaint it. And sometimes, the truth is not in what is said, but what isn't. They don't ask about the part of you that hurts. They never mention the thing they once promised. They laugh too loudly at a question that didn't require a smile. You know they blinked, but you still want to believe. That is the cost. You've done it too. You've smiled when you wanted to scream. You've said, "I'm fine," with a tight jaw. You've offered help with clenched teeth. You know what the blink feels like from the inside, the desperate little moment where the truth tries to scream through a polite sentence. That's why you can see it in others, because you've worn the mask too. So when someone looks at you with warmth, but your chest grows cold, don't override it. Don't explain it away. Your mind is a rationalizer. Your body is an oracle. The heart knows when the rhythm of a room doesn't match the tone of the voice in it. That's not paranoia. That's ancestral memory whispering. Watch this one. There is a cruelty in this skill. You begin to see how often people speak in performance. You start to notice how few words are aligned with motive. The smile of the family member who resents you. The casual joke that feels like a blade. The comforting hand that trembles with jealousy. And worst of all, the love that wasn't love, but ownership. You don't confront. You don't expose. You learn to watch without freezing, to listen without reacting. Because the moment you react, they know what works on you. And now, they have a map. Your silence is protection. Your detachment is a trap. Let them keep talking. Let them fill the space. They will eventually blink, and when they do, the truth will flicker through the mask like a flash of lightning across a storm. You must become unreadable, not to deceive, but to stop feeding their illusions. Let them guess what you're thinking. Let them wonder why you're not flattered, not hurt, not laughing. That's when the projection stops working. That's when their script begins to unravel. And when they say, "What's wrong, but you haven't moved?" that's the moment the mirror cracks. Because they weren't asking for your truth. They were asking for their performance to be validated, and your silence didn't clap. Intentions aren't hidden, they're displaced. The angry lover who jokes about cheating, the helpful friend who always appears when you're weak, the kind stranger who watches too closely. If you stop needing their approval, their signals become deafening. You see what they want without them saying it. And once you see it, you can never unsee. The ones who blink often are the ones who wear too many masks. The ones who never blink, they are the ones to fear most. Because even their lie has discipline. And the absence of error is not purity, it is training. Be more wary of the perfect ones than the flawed. A tremble is still human. A statue is not. This is not a skill for the heart that wants comfort. It's a skill for the soul that prefers solitude over betrayal. When you start to see people clearly, you also start to lose them, because you stop playing roles. You stop believing softness that doesn't smell like safety, and you start to ask yourself, not do they love me, but what do they want from me? What do they? And when the answer arrives, not as a sentence but as a shadow across your spine, you'll know. You'll remember the blink, the pause, the misaligned laugh, the smile with no warmth, and you won't need to ask them anything at all. You'll already know. Every manipulator believes their illusion until one moment of stillness exposes their act. and their face begins to collapse into fragments. You don't catch them in the lie, you catch them in the stillness. That one moment when no one is watching, or so they think. The mask slips not during the speech, but in the breath between sentences, in the silence after laughter, in the pause between performance and reality. They look to the side, thinking no one's paying attention. And in that flicker, that unguarded second, you see it. Not deception, not malice, but exhaustion. The truth isn't a secret they're hiding from you. It's the burden they're hiding from themselves. The manipulator doesn't simply wear a mask they've forgotten where the skin ends and the theater begins. They believe the voice they've crafted. They believe the pain they've edited. They believe the goodness they choreographed in front of a mirror. Until stillness breaks the rhythm and they remember they are not what they perform. Watch closely. The ones who talk endlessly about their honesty often wear the deepest masks. They protest too much. They emphasize too loudly. The word authentic is whispered like a spell, as if repetition could summon reality. But beneath that glowing face, behind the rehearsed concern, there is always a fracture, a moment where the soul stops participating, and the body reveals the puppet strings. You do not expose them. That's the mistake of amateurs. You do not shout, "I see your mask." You simply remain silent and still. Stillness is disobedience to performance. It makes the air too clear for illusions to breathe. In that clarity, the mask dries, cracks, begins to sag, and the performer, sensing the audience slipping away, begins to panic. They reach for more drama, more empathy, more righteous suffering. The manipulator always reaches for more emotion when truth begins to rot their stage. But you don't clap. You don't blink. You become absence, and their mask can't reflect off what doesn't respond. There is a sickness in those who manipulate, a desperate, clawing need to be someone they are not. They do not want to deceive you. They want to believe you believe them. Your belief is the drug. The mask only works when someone mirrors it. So when you stop being a mirror, they start to crack. Have you noticed how quickly their story changes when it stops working? How the victim becomes the hero, then the villain, then the mystic, depending on what draws your sympathy? That's not evolution. That's collapse. The mask is crumbling and they're trying on new ones like a dying actor rifling through costumes backstage. This isn't about blame, it's about seeing. About watching the moment a person reaches the edge of their own illusion and still chooses to keep dancing. They don't want to be known. They want to be consumed in the way they control. And the mask is their contract with reality. If I pretend hard enough, maybe I can become real. But they can't, because truth rots in silence. The words get smoother. The smile gets brighter, but the eyes dim. And when you speak to the place behind their mask, nothing responds. Just an echo. Just another line. Another posture. Another emotion that feels rehearsed even when it's wet with tears. The mask is not only for you, it's for them, to avoid the collapse that would come if they truly saw themselves. That's why they attack silence. That's why they interrupt. Why they flood every room with noise, charm, apologies, or intensity. Stillness is the mirror they can't control. And you, if you stay still, become the doorway they cannot close. You have seen it in a lover who always had the right answers but never the right energy. In a parent who demanded obedience while wearing the robe of love. In a friend who confessed pain but fed on your pity. You saw it once and doubted yourself, but the mask had already cracked, and you could never unsee. They will call you cold, distant, unfair. They will say you misunderstood. They will switch faces until you feel dizzy. And if that fails, they will try to make you the villain in their new script. Because every manipulator needs a contrast to stay innocent. Don't argue, don't defend, don't feed the play. Masks starve when the audience stops playing along. You are not cruel for seeing what they hide. You are awake, and when someone's illusion is threatened by your presence, it's because you are not playing the part they assigned you. The tragedy is they could have chosen to drop the mask, but they never will, because the mask is safer than the self they buried to wear it. They need it. They need to be seen a certain way to avoid drowning in the emptiness beneath it. Stillness is your weapon, not to harm but to reveal. To sit across from someone, unmoved by performance, is to become the mirror they can't shatter. Their face begins to fall, not violently, slowly, like melting wax. You see the eye twitch before the story begins, the smile that comes too early, the apology that arrives with no change. These are not accidents, they are signals. The soul behind the mask is tired and dangerous. Tired because pretending is erosion. Dangerous because when the mask begins to fall and you're still there, they may lash out, not because they hate you, because they are afraid of being seen without a face. You don't need to run. You don't need to heal them. You need only to see and stay quiet. When you stop playing along, you take away their control, and in that void, their true intention always surfaces: need, envy, fear, domination, and beneath all of it the same ancient wound: I am not lovable without this mask. They won't say it. They'll never say it. But every manipulator performs for a love they do not believe they deserve. And the mask is their currency, their ticket to affection without exposure. But you don't buy it anymore. You see the edges curling, the glue peeling, the performance faltering under the weight of silence. And still, you do not rescue them. Because to rescue a mask is to betray the face beneath it. Let them collapse. Let the fragments fall. It's not your job to hold their illusion together. It was never your job to believe in a lie just because it came dressed in flattery and tears. You don't hate them, but you do see them. And that is the one thing the mask cannot endure. So let it happen. Let the silence stretch. Let the mirror stay unbroken. And when they finally stop speaking, stop posturing, stop becoming someone else maybe, for one moment, their real face will surface. And maybe they'll hate you for it, or maybe they'll finally breathe. But either way, the mask is dead. And you didn't need to lift a finger, just a mirror, just a stillness, just the cold, clear refusal to pretend with them. You don't read intentions by reacting. You read them by remaining untouched, until their heat reveals its true source: hunger, fear, or control. They expect you to flinch. That's the game. The performance needs a stage, and your reaction is the lighting. If you don't glow, they don't shine. Every provocation is bait, every gesture a test. If you rise, they know which lever works. If you burn, they know where the wick is buried. But when you do nothing, nothing real, nothing soft, nothing wounded, you become unreadable, and in unreadability, they suffocate. You aren't cold, you are clear. Stillness is not emptiness, it is refusal. You no longer leak permission through your eyes. You no longer apologize for silence. You do not lean in. You do not rescue discomfort. And in that space, in that unbearable neutrality, the fire behind their intentions flares up and scorches their own hands. To detach is not to withdraw. It is to remain without being pulled. You watch them twist, adapt, charm, escalate. You let them show you everything, and you reveal nothing. They call you distant, but you're just not offering fuel. You're watching the fire, not stepping into it. You begin to notice who speaks only to create reaction, the story told with too many details, the complaint whispered for sympathy, the compliment sharpened to bind you. Most people don't converse, they perform. They seduce you into roles. They need you to echo something they already believe, that they are powerful, pitiful, irresistible, innocent, adored. They feed not on your presence, but your agreement. Detachment is the art of starvation, not of yourself, of the illusion. You remove your hunger from the table. You stop craving approval, validation, warmth, and when you need nothing from the interaction, the veil lifts. Suddenly, their niceness feels heavy. Their openness seems calculated. Their warmth is a net, and you begin to see the real shape of what they want. They want power, not always to dominate, sometimes just to not be left, sometimes just to keep you orbiting them, sometimes just to feel less hollow. But it's still power, it's still leverage, and when you don't respond as expected, when your face remains unreadable, when your voice holds no apology, they panic. You are no longer a mirror. You are a black glass reflecting nothing, showing only the one who stands before it. And without your reactions to light them up, their words begin to crumble into noise. Their seduction turns to suspicion. They ask, "What are you thinking?" But you offer them no narrative. You say nothing, and their world tilts. You used to try to understand people by caring more. You listened too closely. You bent your shape to make them comfortable. You tried to read their pain so you could hold it. But now you know care is not clarity. It is fog, when used too early. You saw through no one because you tried too hard to heal them. You burned yourself hoping their warmth was real. But the cold fire, the fire of detachment, does not burn you. It illuminates. You sit in conversation with someone you used to need, but now you don't crave their gaze. And so, when they smile too wide, you see it. When they mention their ex to wound you, you feel only the strategy. When they offer a gift, you taste the debt inside it. You are no longer intoxicated by effort. You see the cost beneath the glitter, and now they squirm, not because you accused, but because you did not respond. Detachment doesn't provoke, it reveals. They will try again. They will escalate kindness, flirtation, confession. But when they realize you are not warming, not rising, not leaning in, they begin to unravel. Not publicly, but internally, because you've broken the loop. Their intention can no longer reach you. It's not that you're hard, it's that you're untouched. Their drama, their sadness, their curiosity, their flirtation, it hits glass. And that mirror shows them something they can't control themselves. That's when the rage starts, or the fear, or the silence. Because when someone cannot move you, they no longer know who they are. You used to take this personally. You thought detachment meant abandonment, but now you understand detachment is sacred. It is the space where truth is loudest. It is how you see who someone really is, when they cannot seduce, distract, or dominate. The cold fire is not cruelty, it is restraint. You choose not to dance just because music plays. You choose not to flinch at every sharp word. You choose to burn quietly, observing the entire theater without becoming part of it. And in that clarity, intention is no longer a mystery. You walk into rooms and feel the pull who wants your admiration, your envy, your trust, your guilt. You don't resist. You simply don't offer. And without your participation, the pull becomes obvious. They want something from you, and now you see it not in their words, but in their adjustments, how they adapt depending on your stillness, how they test, retreat, return. You say little, you change nothing, and their desperation paints itself across their face, because you are no longer useful, and that, more than rejection, terrifies them. You do not need to expose them. You do not need to argue. Your cold fire will do it for you. The hunger behind the kindness, the control behind the vulnerability, the possessiveness behind the compliment. It all ignites, desperate to pull warmth from you, but finds only glass. Your stillness is not emptiness, it is depth. They cannot follow you there, because there's no echo in your silence, only the sound of their own steps falling short. And if they demand an answer, a reason, a reaction, you give them the greatest cruelty of all, you give them nothing, not out of malice, but because there is no longer anything to feed. You're not reading them to react, you're watching them to understand. And once you really see the shape of their intent, you don't need to run, you don't need to stay, you simply stop being moved. And in that final stillness, the performance dies. They don't know how, but you do. You let the fire burn without heat, and watch them unravel in their own light. A theater stands in silence. The stage lights are still on, but no one is performing. Costumes litter the floor. Mirrors cracked without being touched. In the front row, an empty seat, yours. They keep waiting for your applause, for your gasp, for your reaction. But you've left without leaving. Only your silence remains. Somewhere behind the curtain, someone whispers your name, not with anger, not with sorrow, but with confusion. They don't understand why the fire won't burn you anymore. And in that unanswered question, in that flicker of panic, the mask finally falls. No one catches it. No one claps. Only the dust remains slowly settling on a stage that once fed on your attention. And in the still air, something colder than truth lingers. Not cruelty, not closure, just the echo of someone who finally saw and stayed silent.